Spain has for the first time declared a national emergency as wildfires forced the removal to safety of around 20,000 people near Madrid. A summer of extreme heat and dryness means the country is struggling to tackle several severe blazes. Fires are also burning out of control in France.
The scale of the fires in France was apparent from the air as dawn broke, and the curtain of smoke billowed unabated. The wildfires near Bordeaux have destroyed over 50 houses and a campsite and are still out of control. Authorities in the region had been worried about a blaze like this catching on.
We'd been fearing it given the drought and the wind. Here it is, this massive XXL wildfire. It's an XXL wildfire because it's unpredictable. It's leaping a kilometre at a time. And it's XXL because it's voracious. It has already destroyed 10,000 hectares.
An evacuation order has been issued at Cap Ferrat on France's Atlantic coast, an area known for its beaches, pine forests and high-value holiday properties. Tens of thousands of people have been forced to leave their homes.
It's quite impressive, even frightening. An evacuation on this scale has never happened before. All we really hope is that the firefighters can quickly get it under control.
In Spain, the government has declared a national emergency, with authorities evacuating those threatened by the blazes near Madrid, which keep spreading.
The fire is not under control. The two fires in San Martin and Villa del Prado are about to merge and become a single fire advancing toward Navas del Rey. So the fire is, in fact, out of control.
The blazes have prompted both countries to call on the EU for assistance.
Now let's go to France first and go to Diane de Vignemont. She's in Paris, a journalist following this story. Diane, what's the latest on the fires in France?
Hi, thanks for having me. The latest is that there's 32 fires currently ongoing across the country. And while France is somewhat used to seeing wildfires in late July and in August, the issue with these is that they've started so early. They started in June, and some of them have still not been fully shut down. And so there's fires picking up in new areas, just as fires in previous areas haven't been put out. So it's propagating, it's across the countries. Firemen are being called on sort of all over the country. You see the dots on the map, they're just all over.
Now, we've seen large-scale evacuations in Spain. Many thousands had to flee their homes. Is there a similar situation in France?
Very much so. So last week, I was on the DW 9 days ago talking about Fontainebleau in the southern suburb of Paris, where thousands of people were evacuated. And just today, some 44,000 were evacuated from the Cap Ferrat, which you just showed some pictures. So it's tens of thousands of people across the country, you know, spending the night in hangars with very little AC, some food being distributed, their homes burned down. And this is just the beginning of the hottest part of the summer. They're expecting another heat wave at the end of next week, which is only going to make this worse.
Now, as you mentioned, wildfires are quite common in France, especially in the south. Would you say that France is generally well prepared for hotter and drier summers that are sure to come?
Not exactly. We've got a fleet of firefighting planes, but it's sort of aging out, and it's going to need a lot of money to be sort of renewed and replenished with new planes. And our previous prime minister, who's currently running for president, one of the things that he's being really criticized for right now is that he took money out of the budget for buying new firefighting planes. And just in general, the Macron presidency has seen this lowering of the what we call the green budget. And so we find ourselves financially unprepared to deal with what we need to do to keep this from spreading, but also to keep this from happening summer after summer.
Now, can you give us a brief outlook for the next 12 hours?
So for the next 12 hours, the key The biggest one is the one in Gironde in Cap Ferrat that we're trying to get under control. But the idea is also to try and prevent new fires from starting up across the country as we head in to our fourth heat wave of the season. That's going to be the challenge for the next 12 hours and the next week.
The journalist Diane de Vignemont in Paris. Thank you very much, Diane.
Thank you.
And DW's Nicole Ris is at an evacuation center close to Madrid in Spain, and she gave me an update on the fires there a bit earlier.
Well, the situation is really critical. Several fires have unified, fused, so they are growing into a bigger fire. A third one from the autonomous region of Castilla y León might join them. And this is also why we're seeing more and more people being evacuated to centers like this one here in Villaviciosa de Odón. At the moment, a little more than 100 people are already here. There's another one further down the street, and there's another 100 people who have found shelter here. They're told that they might stay for around 2 nights, but they really don't know. Obviously, some are very worried about what is waiting for them when they come back. Others are just happy that the evacuation was done in a very orderly way. We're expecting more people to arrive here as well. And as we speak, firefighters are out there really trying their best in very harsh conditions. The wind today is against them. The temperatures are high still. We're hoping that maybe within the next day the temperatures will drop a bit, but this wind, it's up to 50 kilometers per hour, really makes it difficult to tackle the flames, especially when the fires, the single fires, have unified. And if you go into Villaviciosa de Odón, on the horizon, you see a gigantic cloud that circumnavigates the city of Madrid. It's like a huge ring cloud that is made out of smoke, because actually in this summer there is no real clouds here. So this gives you sort of an idea of how bad it is. The president of the Comunidad de Madrid, of the autonomous region of Madrid, Isabel Díaz Ayuso, said that this is the worst wildfires in the history of the region of Madrid, and said that we have a national emergency that has been called out now to get more resources to tackle the fires. 4 planes from Greece and also from Italy should be joining forces here to tackle the flames. But as we just heard in this report, this is not only in Spain, this is also happening on a huge scale in France. And here as well, around 19,000 people have been evacuated. And we just heard it half an hour ago, 2 people have been arrested as well. They are suspected to have forced these fires, maybe due to negligence. We don't know much more. It could be heavy machinery that was involved. It could also be other reasons. We were still about to find out, but this is something that has been on the news for the last half hour, more or less.
Now, what's the outlook for the next 12 hours?
Well, there is hope that the temperatures might drop, but even if they drop, we have a huge fire that we're looking at. There are other fires that are developing in other patches of the region. Just yesterday, to give you an example, we saw firsthand how somebody that we know saw how the smoke appeared in front of him maybe a kilometer away, and then he alerted the authorities, and today he's evacuated as well. The blaze was very quick to develop, so people needed to get out of this patch. And just this morning as well, people who were in safe areas, in safe evacuation centers, needed to leave them. They're now coming here. You see, there's, like, if you can see it behind me, there's a little movement as well going in and out. So there is obvious hope always when the temperatures goes down, but it's huge blazes here. So it will be still difficult, and the next 12 hours are critical.
Nicole, wildfires are quite common in Spain, especially in the summer. But is this one different?
I would say wildfires always have a few factors in common. I mean, we have very long heat waves now due to climate change. The soil is very dry. The vegetation has grown abundantly over the winter and spring because there were abundant rains as well. And this makes just the perfect scenario for a spark to expand and then become a blaze and a fire. We're not quite sure if this fire is so different from others, but there's multiple things that have made it worse. And this is that fires have started, for example, not so far away from each other, and, for example, were able to spread as far so they unify. And again, it's a lot of drought. It's a lot of drought also in the air. There's no humidity whatsoever. There's no rain. There's long heat waves. And as we have seen in recent years as well, this just makes it worse to put them out.
Nicole Ris there reporting from the wildfires in Spain. Thank you, Nicole. Well, farmers in Spain's Galicia region are turning to an old solution to combat the threat of wildfires. Goats, sheep and native cattle are being sent into the hills to eat the dense undergrowth that can fuel these fires.
These animals are doing a job that machines can't always manage, moving across steep and rugged terrain and eating the scrub that allows flames to spread quickly. The approach was adopted here after a major wildfire swept through the parish of Vincios in 2017.
Historically, this has always been a fire-prone area, and the only solution we found is extensive livestock grazing. The costs of mechanical clearing are beyond this community's means.
Among the animals are Cachena cattle, a hardy Galician breed known as goat cattle for their ability to cross rough ground. By eating gorse, brambles and other scrub, they reduce the fuel available to wildfires without stripping the forest bare.
One of the main benefits of native livestock is that they keep the scrub at a suitable height so that it doesn't pose a risk in the event of wildfires, while it also helps to maintain living ecosystems.
The revival of traditional grazing has also helped native breeds recover. Their numbers across Galicia have risen from just over 1,800 in the late 1990s to more than 30,000 today. The animals can't prevent every fire, but local land managers hope they can slow the flames and make them less destructive when they reach grazed areas. That's increasingly important in Galicia, where almost 119,000 hectares burnt last year. For these communities, bringing livestock back to the mountains is not simply a return to the past. It's becoming part of their defence against a hotter and more fire-prone future.
Let's look at some of the issues arising from that with Lindon Pronto, who's a firefighter and expert in wildfire management. He has hands-on experience of tackling fires like those we're seeing in Spain and France. Welcome to DW. 25,000 people told to move out of this area. When a blaze has become that big, and as we've heard, it's a case of several blazes merging, where do you start in terms of trying to control it?
Well, this is where it becomes extremely challenging when you have the first priority is, of course, protecting life and property. And the fire now coming together, you have essentially 3 different fires, each with their own dynamic, meaning they're responding separately to the terrain that they're on. Hyperlocal wind patterns and influences of the topography, and the high heat is certainly making it much worse, not to mention it's been how many heat waves, 3, 4 heat waves, depending on where you're standing. So for firefighters to respond to these, it takes sometimes a big step back to figure out how how to set priorities, aside from the frantic effort to evacuate people when conditions worsen like this. And we have this type of dynamic. What happens is the fire can create its own type of weather and conditions on the ground, which makes it even more unpredictable. So the hope is to get everybody out safely in time, which also means the focus is not initially on containing the fire, it's on saving people and getting them out.
Tell us more about that step back as you try to decide how to control the fire. Where do you get the overview? Is that coming from actual aerial reconnaissance? Are you using computer geographical data? How does that work?
It's a combination of everything. It's a combination of experience on the ground. It's a combination of understanding the landscape, how fire moves. The firefighters are coming from this area, so they understand the conditions on the ground. They understand how it's going to react in certain scenarios. But of course, there's, meanwhile, we have satellite, space-based solutions that can help us with, for instance, determining a fire spread model, utilizing different data inputs that you can use. However, when you are talking about solutions from space, you're also talking about a lag time. You're also talking about, accuracy issues. So it cannot be used kind of as an in the moment tool. There are other tools that can be used, for more acute scenarios like this, for the decision makers on the ground. Basically, the most important thing is understanding the weather and the changes in weather conditions and the lower atmosphere, the stability of the atmosphere, how unstable it is. Right. These are the conditions that are going to drive the fire behavior in particular.
Sadly, the last few days have seen several firefighters killed in these blazes in France and Spain and Italy. Can you give our viewers an idea of the sort of physical and mental demands of the job while you're down there on the ground facing this enormous thing?
It's extremely grueling work. It's hot. It's often windy, chaotic. You're basically surviving off of adrenaline for the most part when you're in those types of scenarios, which means, it's difficult. There's a human factor. It can become difficult to be kind of aware of where your limits are. It requires looking out for each other. It requires cycling people in and out if you can. Unfortunately, when resources are stretched so thin due to the simultaneity of events, sometimes it's very, there's not really a chance to, take a shift of people off and right. and give them a break. So it's extremely demanding work. However, you're generally pretty focused and calm in getting the job done. Your training kicks in and takes over, and you go through the motions of it.
And a quick word about how that coordination of those forces on the ground works, because you're often talking about firefighting forces from more than one region. So how does that coordination and control work?
It's very dependent on the system. It's very dependent on how the country might be politically structured. So with Spain, it's organized across autonomous regions, and each region has their own way of doing things. There's certain standardized approaches across the board. Or if you have a country like France, everything is very standardized. Every firefighter goes to the same academy, has the same education and training. So it really depends on the overall system in place. It depends on local agreements. There could be local mutual aid agreements between, of course, it's not just firefighters, it's also all sorts of other agencies that need to respond. So, in many parts of the world, you have the incident command system, which is how that's organized. And in different countries, they have sometimes their own systems where they have elements of the incident command system, which is modular and able to be adaptable right. to different incident complexities.
OK, thanks for talking us through that, Lindon. Lindon Pronto is a wildfire management expert.
Thank you.